Hey guys, it's Ted with the Ted Show. Super excited to be back here on the first Monday of February, February 3rd, 2020. Can't believe it. I'm very, very honored and excited to have the amazing Jacki Briggs with me and Marcs DiBona next to me. And they are with First Responder Conferences and Blue Help. And we're going to talk about first responders, suicide awareness, suicide prevention, mental health, wellness, all sorts of good things which we all need a reminder of, and we all absolutely need to make sure that we keep an eye out for. So welcome to the show.
Good morning, it's great to be here. Thank you so much, Ted.
I know, right? We took so long to get going because we were just figuring out, we want to make sure everybody's tagged. So you have the conference this weekend, I believe, or next weekend. It's coming soon. And I'm so excited for you to share the mission, share the conference, share what it's all about. But I told you earlier that we like origin stories. So Jacki, ladies first, we'll start with you. Give us a little background on you and how you got to this journey.
So I currently volunteer as the Assistant Director for First Responder Conferences, and we put together 2-day mental health and wellness trainings around the United States for all first responders, police, fire, EMS, dispatch, coroners, corrections, any other support staff, as well as clinicians, doctors, nurses, active military veterans, and their spouses and significant others. So I'm really honored because this is something very near and dear to my heart. My husband is a Marine Corps veteran, as well as he's been in law enforcement for the last almost 27 years.
Wow.
And then part of our personal story as well is that we also have 4 daughters, 2 of which we adopted from the Philippines when they were teenagers. And we thought, I absolutely love them to death. We thought that we were prepared for the trauma that they would bring into our home, but we had no idea what, being a Marine Corps veteran and a police officer had not prepared us, and all the training that we did not prepare us for the trauma that would actually happen in our home. So we ended up with 4 traumatized teenage daughters.
Wow.
And 2 of them are suicide attempt survivors.
Wow.
And our youngest, when she was 16, had a suicide attempt and ended up in 3 different hospitals over 3 months, and we had to fly her clear to Indiana from Idaho to get the help that she needed, because Idaho literally is ranked 50th for mental health and wellness resources, but nobody in the whole Pacific Northwest would take her because she was too suicidal and had too much layered trauma. But thank God we found the resources that we needed, and it saved her life. She's doing amazing now.
I love
and
that.
all of our girls are doing really well, and we're really grateful. So I know there's a lot of people that don't get the resources that they need. I personally have very dear friends that have lost their loved ones, their sons, their daughters, their husbands, their wives to suicide, and I don't want any family to have to live through that, because I know that the resources are out there, and I know that if they get the right help, that their life can be saved.
Wow. Okay, so this is part of the surprise look from Ted, because as you know, we don't do a lot of research on the guests, and thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I feel like we need to share more of those stories instead of there being such a stigma, and then people are so afraid to bury it, and then things go unresolved for so long, and then you have more of a horrible negative impact on people. So thank you very much for your husband's service, and thank you for sharing that story, Jacki. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, Marcs DiBona, tell us about you.
Well, I recently retired last March. I retired after 33 years of being on the job as a deputy sheriff and also a police officer in Massachusetts. So I did total 33 years. It was a great
the accent.
I'm still wicked pisser. so I parked my car in the garage.
You parked your car. That's awesome.
So in my 33 years, I saw a lot. We as first responders, we see the worst side of the world when it comes to the horrible homicide, sexual abuse, domestic violence, and also the internal stress that goes on, because we take that home with us. And a little over 10 years ago, the stress was really building up on me, where I had a suicide attempt twice in the same night. Job related, and it was tough. And that obviously caused issue in my marriage, caused issue in my personal life, and also on a physical level too. I was up to about 280 pounds, because when I got stressed out, I would binge eat.
Sure.
And that made it very difficult, so I wasn't happy with my appearance. But most of all, like you said earlier, was the stigma. I was afraid to get help. I was afraid that, oh my goodness, if I go get help, nobody will want to work with me, I'll look weak, I'm embarrassed. So I got help, fortunately, for my suicide attempt, and was able to turn my life around. I'm diagnosed with PTSD, depression, and anxiety, and I finished my last 10 years with those mental health illnesses. But I decided one thing to do during that was I want to give something back to our first responders. I want to show that it's okay not to be okay, and to fight the stigma, and you can move on from this. So when I do my presentations, I tell my story, where I'll be willing to talk to any first responder about getting help. I know what it's like to be in those dark places, but I also know what it's like now to walk away from those dark places. Are they still there in my life? Absolutely, they're still there. But now giving something back to our first responders just is phenomenal. It just makes me feel so good inside and doing some good.
I love the fact, thank you again for sharing that. Thank you for your
You're
service
welcome.
too. I think it's so important that we share. I think one of the problems is that we talk about it a lot, and it's definitely better than it used to be, but we need improvement. We need to get out of our heads some of the things that we have, some of the beliefs we have about people who have attempted suicide, people who have suicides in their family. It's unfortunate that there's such this negative thing that shines on them. And what I don't think people understand is that the thoughts, there's still issues that continue on, and so you have to continuing to talk about it, from what I'm told, is cathartic. It's good. You're giving back. It's a good place for you to be because you're helping somebody who was in that position or has thought about being in that position. And sometimes I've heard the stories where you're catching somebody who is considering it, and because you were brave enough to share your story, you impacted them and they chose not to do it at that moment, or they chose not to do it at all. So I think it's brave, and huge kudos and salute to both of you for sharing your story, because I think the more that we get it out there, the more that we, I don't want to say normalize, but make it so that it's not such a horrible thing. It's what's going on that we need to figure out how to address and how to prevent it. And I think one of the things that we need to do is make mental health and make mental health services more available, and make mental health, going to a mental health person, a counselor, an advisor, somebody who can help you out, make that so that that is a norm, that's an okay thing to do. And I understand the reasons, which you guys can share, but there's a lot of reasons why people don't do it. We've all got our baggage that we bring with us, and sometimes we're bringing that baggage with us, or sometimes we're afraid of how it will impact our job, our career, our families, what people will think of us, and I think it's so important what you all are doing. So kudos to you, blessings to you. I think it's amazing that you share your story and that you continue to go out there and show the love to people. All right, so let's talk about first responder conferences, because it's this weekend, correct?
It's this Thursday and Friday in Celebration at Celebration Community Church.
And what is it? Tell us what first responder conferences is.
So we do a 2-day mental health and wellness training for, like I said earlier, all first responders, and it's called First Responder Conferences because it was started by our director. She's a canine officer out of King County Sheriff's Office in the Seattle area, and her husband is also a patrol officer who works for King County Sheriff's Office. And he'd been on the SWAT team many years. He had some struggles with organizational stress, had started dealing with that with drinking, and they realized we need to get help, but they didn't want to ask their department, and because you don't want to do that. And so she found some resources, and they got him help, and then they realized, wow, if we didn't know where to go for help, other first responders are not going to know what to do. And so how hard would it be to help connect people with resources? So she's also on the peer support team. Her captain had come to her and asked her to put on a mental health and wellness training for their department. It went so well that she started getting requests all over the place to bring this training. And so she does a phenomenal job, our team does a phenomenal job of really putting together a 2-day event. Everybody's together, there's no breakout sessions. So we have police, fire, EMS, dispatch, coroners, corrections, chaplains, clinicians, pretty much every branch of public safety that works together, anyone that works in tandem with them. In Idaho, we had the Attorney General's office jump in, send their investigators, their prosecutors, their records clerks as well, because a lot of people don't realize, even though they're not necessarily on scene, they are also impacted by compassion fatigue, by vicarious trauma, which is also another reason why we invite significant others and spouses to attend as well, not only because they are typically the first line of defense for their first responder or their military or veteran, but they also need the tools themselves as well to maintain mental health. And we're trying to get ahead of the suicide rates instead of just trying to pluck people out of the river as they're floating by and save their life, to go upriver and get ahead of that. So get people the resources to and it is normalizing in a way, and I don't mean that to change what you said.
It's a funny word, right?
Yeah,
you're never sure what goes along with that. I want to make it so that it's a normal thing,
okay.
that it's okay. That's really the word I'm looking
It's okay to get help, and we bring together phenomenal speakers. We have all different professions: police, fire, dispatchers, corrections officers, veterans, clinicians that come in, chaplains that come in, peer support team members, active military. They come in and they talk about it, they share their story, and oftentimes when people share their story, like you were talking about, it gives people the courage to then reach out for help. Afterwards, we have at least between 5 and 20 people that always reach out for help, if not more, whether they're in crisis and we're able to get them into help right away, or just asking for resources that they can have to maintain their mental health and wellness. It's really phenomenal. And we have also the other thing that we do that's different than other trainings is we bring our resource partners together at the training, and so we set up our resource partners in the training room itself. So our partners, treatment facilities that specialize in first responders and veteran programs. We've got other organizations, wellness centers, all different types of stuff that will come in and be a part of it and be a resource for people so that we can connect them with resources. Plus, they also get to hear what really is going on and get the perspective of what first responders and veterans go through, and so it helps them to be in better service to our people, as well as they get the training themselves. We have disaster cleanup companies. Nobody ever thinks about them. That they go in and they clean up after suicides or homicides, and they are definitely impacted by that as well. And so it's good for them to get that training also. We have a networking social at the end of the 2 days as well. And then we also do breakfast and lunch together. We take breaks every 45 minutes. We bring together donations from the community, so we connect local resources as well as regional and national. We get things like float centers donated, big packages so that first responders and veterans can go do things, because most of us don't have the funding. We all know we're not in this for the money. We do this because we care about people, we love people, we want to serve the community, and so we don't have the money to go do something fun with our families very often, or take our spouses out. So we put together like hotel rooms, a boat trip or an adventure park trip, or
What's the bonding like? Because it's not everything you're talking about. Because what I feel like is that everybody's coming together. There's this commonality, obviously, which normally you wouldn't talk about that commonality outside, or there'd be a stigma, like we mentioned earlier. So you're bringing everyone together. What's the bond feel like there, Marc? What do you guys experience when everyone's together and you've had either a similar, you share something? There's a strain, there's a string, there's an attachment there. What's the event like? What's the conferences like? And when you all come together, what's the feeling?
Well, it's like the old saying goes: the birds of a feather flock together. There is a lot of great people that go to the conference, and then during the breaks and after the conference, everybody sits around and talks. And hey, when you mention this, I can definitely understand what you're saying, and thank you for saying that. And then the bottom line is this: you're not alone. We want to show that it's okay not to be okay, like I said earlier, and the brotherhood and the sisterhood to come together as one, where you're not judged, you're not being made fun of, you're not being the stigma, you're not being shamed or anything like that. These are people that we want people to attend the conference with an open mind and to say, wow, this is really interesting. Either I did not know this is going on,
Right.
or this has really strengthened me, or like Jackie said earlier, maybe it'll lead to somebody that is struggling, or they know somebody that's struggling, and this is their first step to getting help, which is absolutely phenomenal. And after our last conference we did, I had 2 or 3 people come up to me and ask me, okay, how do I get started by going to therapy, going to counseling? And all 3 of them, they gave the same line. It was almost like they talked to each other before they talked to me. Was, hey, I'm not crazy. Nobody said you were crazy. Not at all.
Right, that's back to the stigma thing.
Exactly.
Going to a counselor is incredibly healthy. It's a healthier choice than bottling it all up and then having the ramifications, the consequences of that. Because trust me, guys, it doesn't matter where your mind is. If you've got issues, if you've got things that are unresolved and are building up, first responder or not, and you're not talking about them, something's going to explode at some point in time. Something's going to come out in a way that you normally wouldn't let it come out, because at some point your body, mind, soul, spirit, whatever your beliefs are, it just can't take it anymore. So how is that going to happen? It really differs on each person, but I think it's so important that we say, hey, it's okay to go see a counselor. Hey, it's okay, Mark, if you want to call the suicide prevention hotline, if you want to call services and try to get in to see a counselor, it's okay to do that. And I had a friend whose son took his life last March. He's watching, or was watching earlier, and all of the thoughts that go through your mind is, what could I have done? What are the signs? What can I look for? Well, there's a lot of things that I think that we can do, which you guys probably talk about in the suicide prevention. Can you give them some ideas of maybe what you could do with somebody that you think is struggling, maybe somebody who's said to you, hey, I can't handle it anymore? What are some of the things that people can say, their loved ones can say, to try to encourage them?
One thing I want to say is, never somebody that's struggling with a mental health issue, fighting the demons, is if you've never experienced that, never say I understand how you feel, because you have no idea how you feel.
Correct.
But somebody that has been in the dark place, that has fought the demons, go up to a person that is struggling and say, hey bro, hey sis, I got your back. I'm watching your 12. I got you. That's phenomenal. And just to sit there and say, hey, it's okay. You're having a bad day. You're having a bad couple of weeks. You're having a bad month or whatever. It's okay. We are going to get through this. We're not just going to push you off to a mental health professional and say, all right, wish you the best and let me know how you make out. We're a team here. And we're going to get that. We're going to help you get that help that you need, and honestly, that you deserve to get help. So what I tell my first responders is, never ever be embarrassed of your feelings or embarrassed the way you feel. You're only human. It's going to take a toll on you one way or another. Absolutely. And it may be the job, it may be your personal life, it may be a little bit of both. But as we know, we always bring our personal life to our job, and vice versa. So we just have to get the word out. Let's push the stigma aside and just say, okay, let's go. Let's rock and roll here. We're going to get you some help.
Yeah. Well, and that's what the conference is. The conferences are not just for people in crisis. They're for all first responders and their whole support staff, because, like I said, we're trying to get ahead of this. So don't not come because you think, oh, I'm not that person. You all need it, because we're all impacted by it. And you never know when your bucket is going to be full. You never know when that last call is going to impact you. And so it's really important. And I would say to loved ones, don't be afraid. Do not stick your head in the sand. Don't pretend. Don't hope that it's going to be okay. Do not be afraid. I would say look into, if you think that your loved one is struggling, look into a mental health first aid class, look into an assist class, suicide prevention classes. Get some of the training, because the wording is really important. Some of the wording that we're also working to change is letting people know that it's okay to talk about it, but it also is the way that we talk about it. Not saying, oh, so-and-so committed suicide, they took their life by suicide, because when you say committed, it makes it sound like they committed a crime, or that's part of the shame that goes along with it. And so it's also okay to ask somebody point blank, say, hey, are you thinking about taking your life?
Absolutely.
Because that actually gets their brain to stop and think about it. Because when people are struggling with mental health, and I can't get too much into the science of it, but there's actually, when people are exposed to trauma, and they, especially cumulative trauma, it actually changes your brain. So I know one of the things that we really worked on through the conferences, as well as in Idaho, is we lobbied this year and got legislation passed for our first responders for PTSI and PTSD, is changing the wording. Instead of it just being post-traumatic stress disorder, because people think of that, they think they're broken.
Correct.
They think there's no hope. And I know that there's a lot of great VA programs that are doing it, but unfortunately our veterans have not been taken care of the way they should have been, and they've just been medicated, and they're not really getting the tools that they need. And so people just don't, they don't realize it's a post-traumatic stress injury because it's something that happens to your brain. So getting the help that you need is so key, because there are so many resources out there and everybody's journey is different. Some people may need to go into treatment, others can connect with equine therapy or neurofeedback or all different types of resources. They're out there, and that's a big part of what we do, is connecting people with the right resources, bringing it all to the table. And so there is hope.
I love
Please know that.
PTSI. There is hope. I love PTSI. I love that reframing of it, because I was taught PTSD, and then you learned PTS, so you just left it at the PTS, post-traumatic stress. But I love injury because it formulates a different, not only an opinion of the people listening, which shouldn't matter, but I know it does, back to the stigma, but it also is helpful in when you're talking about it, because when you have a broken leg, you're not beating yourself up over your broken leg.
Yeah.
It's an injury. When you have PTSI, which I think is a great reframing, you've got an injury that it's changed your brain. First responders, I've interviewed several who were here at Pulse, and it is life-changing. And so you can't underestimate what people are going through, and the people that you think are strong, well, they've seen it all. Well, it doesn't matter, they've seen it all, and like Jackie was saying, there's this cumulative effect, this cumulative impact. So if you've seen it all, guess what? You're carrying it all. And so you have to have an outlet, you have to have a release for it. And so we have to be better about treating the people who are first responders, our veterans, anybody who falls into this category, as they have been through something we haven't. I wasn't there, so I can't say, like Marc said earlier, I don't know what you're going through, but I can check on you. How are you? I do a lot of check-ins with people. How are you doing today? It's literally just a quick question, checking on you. I send a lot of those texts out, mainly because I know where people's heads are at, or I think I can sense they're stressed out, and you literally never know what the trigger is to push them over the edge. You don't know, and you can't possibly know. And sometimes they don't know either. And then when you get into that, what I've experienced when I've interviewed people who have, who are survivors, they get in it and it snowballs, and they're at the point where there is no going back. You can't uphill it again, or they feel like they can't uphill it again. And so I love what you're doing. I think it's just so critical, and I love that we're doing more and more for our first responders and our veterans, because it is crisis. This is epidemic. 22 on average, 22 veterans a day take their own lives, and it is just a horrible place for us to be, and yet we don't provide them the services that they need, which you mentioned earlier, Jackie. I could get on my soapbox on this all day long.
Yep.
I want you guys to have I'm sorry, it's such a passionate thing for me, because I see it. I have seen it personally with friends and family.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things, is raising that awareness. More people are starting to recognize it's 22 veterans a day, but then they don't think about what that means. So this last year, that was over 7,000 veterans that we lost in 2019 to suicide. That is completely unacceptable.
That's terrible.
We've lost 228 police officers alone. That is over a 40% increase just in the last year. 67% increase over the last 4 years. And Blue Help is our nonprofit that we work with that tracks all of that and really reaches out to those officers and stuff. We work with others, Firefighter Behavioral Alliance. They track as well. They help firefighters and EMS. They lost, I believe the numbers, I don't know the final, but at least 153 this last year. And I mean, it just, the stats aren't being kept on all the different professions, because it didn't become a major issue until the last 4 or 5 years. It just started gaining momentum. And so it's crazy that we lose more first responders to suicide than line of duty deaths, even with specific professions being targeted.
Did y'all hear that? That's such a tragic, awful number. I can't believe we lose more to taking their own lives than the actual first responder job that
The
they
line
have.
of duty, yeah.
All right, so before we head out and we share the first responder conferences information one more time, I'd love for you to give a shout out to anybody who may have made an impact on you, because what they're saying is there are people there for you. So there are people that you can reach out to. I think a lot of times you get in that spot where you think people will never understand what you're going through, and you're right, Marc, they don't. But there are people who are there that you can at least bounce ideas off of. So can you talk about somebody who's professionally or personally made an impact on you? Give us just a quick thank you or gratitude or shout out.
Well, one's my present therapist, Jamie Bridges, who's based here in Orlando. She's a former Orlando police officer. She has taken me from here to here. Love her. And I actually look forward to going to therapy, where before I was afraid to go. We have a great connection. So once again, giving a shout out to Jamie. But, wow, two people saved my life. One was he since has passed away. His name is Craig McGee. He's the one that talked me off the ledge the night I decided I wanted to die by suicide. And I got to tell you, most importantly, is my wife Galen. If it wasn't for her having my back during the worst times and the best times, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So I have to definitely give a shout out to my wife Galen. And then if we have a lot of resources on our Blue Help page, we have First Help. You can click on that, and it comes up with a ton of resources for first responders here in the local area, and then also nationwide to get assistance. And I also offer my assistance. I'm not a mental health professional, but I've been there, done that, and I'd be more than happy to help any first responder get the help that they deserve.
I love that. How about you, Jackie?
Well, if I had to say, it's hard to pick one person, but I will probably mention a couple of people. Of course, my husband, I just admire him so much. He's the first person in my life that ever really truly loved me unconditionally. And I just admire what he does, his sacrifice, his humbleness as a veteran as well as a first responder. And I want to do everything that I can to help support him and his colleagues. And then support other spouses, because we're impacted as well. My family, I want to give a shout out to my family, my girls, I love them dearly, my granddaughter. Sorry. Yeah, she's a miracle. We wouldn't have her because we almost lost her mom. So I'm just so grateful that they got the resources that they need, and they're alive, and they're all in careers where they're serving others as well. Working on going into the military and first responder conference or first responder professions and stuff, and just have a heart to serve other people. But it was their youth group leader that really helped as a strength coach and helped them realize that they're valued and they're worth it and they're amazing, and then helped direct their strengths, and as well as coached our family as well. And so I'm very grateful for that I'm getting to do something that I enjoy and that is using my strengths to help other people, and then the horrible stuff that we've been through can be turned around for good.
Amen to that. Beautiful. Thank you both for sharing. I think it's so important we give a shout out. We want to see the hearts of the people that are behind the scenes, people who have done the amazing work which you guys are doing. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your journey and sharing your story, and for talking about First Responder Conference, which is Thursday and Friday. We'll tag it all. We did it in the show. We'll tag it again. We'll share all of the information. Please don't feel like you're alone. Please, please, please reach out to Marc, reach out to me, reach out to Jackie, reach out to somebody. So we love you guys so much. Thank you for all you do. Appreciate you. We'll see you soon, guys.